What's up guys, welcome back to a new weekly outlook where I will be talking about every single forex pair and see whether they're up to some longs or shorts for this week. So my name is Oscar Madsen, I'm a funded trader as well as a personal trading coach, and with these videos I'm trying to get you guys to see how a good trader analyzes the market. So let's get into the weekly outlook. So as you can see here on the DXY on the weekly, we can see that we are now inside this demand zone and that we could possibly push up higher from here. Now we need to keep in mind that the fundamentals are bearish for the DXY and that also on the daily we are swing bearish and we tapped this supply, so we could just continue down lower. Also, if you look at the 4 hour, you will see that we are 4 hour swing bullish, but we still need to trade towards the 50% levels, so I still see some downside. From here we could either see a possible trade up higher in towards this swing high, but I'm expecting lower prices in line with the fundamentals, which say that the dollar is or could weaken, right? So definitely could expect a little reaction, maybe in towards this supply zone, and then from here we could then trade down lower in towards the lows, or at least that's what I'm expecting. So going over to Euro USD, well, what you can see over here, first of all, on the weekly time frame, is that we now have, first of all, tapped or grabbed all of this liquidity above the highs. This caused a reaction down lower, grabbing liquidity underneath this little low over here. And we also made connection with this overall demand zone. So we could just see higher prices, right, if the order flow and the fundamentals are strong. But normally, after seeing that much liquidity getting taken, you could expect a move down lower though, grabbing some internal liquidity under the lows. So we could still see some downside on the weekly, definitely in towards the 50% levels and at internal liquidity. But if the lower time frame gives us bullish order flow and more confirmation, I think we could, from this demand, just maybe trade up higher in towards this higher supply. Going over to the daily, well, we are bullish, same as the weekly, 50% is here with this internal liquidity, but from this demand zone, we got a reaction up higher. Now, we still have bearish order flow with this supply in control, so we could still trade down lower. Looking at the 4 hour, well, what do I see? We are bearish, so we could expect some downside from that 50% level in line with that daily order flow which I showed. So it looks good to trade down lower, but we gotta keep in mind that we have a lot of liquidity above the highs and that a move like this is not unexpected, or is not something that is not going to happen, right? This is high likely that we take out the highs, but it's also likely that we could get a reaction. So it's to us, like on us to wait, either we get a reaction from this point and we trade down lower, or we do not get a reaction and we trade up higher. So that's my view on EU. Let's now go to GBP USD. Looking at the weekly time frame, look, we tapped this demand zone and we got a beautiful reaction from this. So I'm expecting to trade in towards this imbalance candle, which is more clear on the daily, which is a refined supply zone. So I see upside on the GBP USD on the weekly time frame, even though we already grabbed major liquidity above this high, attracting sellers in towards the market. What do we know? Often early sellers like this get swiped before the real move in towards the downside will happen. So that's also what I'm waiting on, because we got this beautiful reaction from this weekly demand. So looking at the daily, as you can see, this is your supply zone, which is a clear open supply, which we didn't yet have tapped. So we're also daily bullish. We tapped this demand, like I said, on the weekly, and then now you can see that we also turned daily fractal bullish. So now what do we have? Well, we do have the fractal demand from the low to the fractal high, and now from here you could expect a move up higher in towards that overall open supply zone, right? So looking at the 4 hour, it is going to be the same swing. We took liquidity underneath these lows, swiping all of these people. Then we created a new demand zone over here, like this. And then we created another one over here just this morning. Oh, like this. So I'm expecting upside on GBP USD because we have bullish order flow and because of the higher time frame. Then where am I expecting a move from? Well, from that monthly level. So now that we just broke the daily fractal, well, now I'm looking for a retracement in towards that monthly level. And from here, I will look to long in towards the open supply zone. So this is looking quite nice on GBP USD. Going over to AUD USD, looking at the weekly time frame. Well, what do we see? A reaction this morning from this overall demand zone on the weekly time frame. So in the long term, I'm definitely expecting to trade towards that blue line, the 50% levels of this weekly swing, and this internal liquidity as well. So we could already see a move up higher, but that's for us to look at the lower time frame. So looking here at the chart on the daily, what do I see? Well, that we have this demand which is actually in control, and as you can see, we respected this low, so I'm expecting that we break the highs. This is what you often see. Once you reject to break a low, you often see the highs get swiped. So this is looking good to trade up higher in towards this high, and then like I said, this liquidity over here, which I'm looking to trade to, as well as this open supply zone. Looking at the 4 hour, well, I think this is still tricky, right, to get a quick move swiping everybody and then trade up higher. But as you can see, the order flow is holding. We are respecting the lows at all time. We are not breaking lows, we are breaking highs. So as you can see, this morning we also created a new demand zone as well. So I'm definitely expecting upside on AUD USD this week, trading to this high and that higher time frame liquidity. So something like this and then like this. So inside this demand, I will look at longs. Going over to NZD USD, looking at the weekly time frame. Well, perfect tap in towards this weekly demand. Of course, I'm also looking at this internal liquidity with this open supply as well. Now we can see a perfect tap, but we know that this is just the beginning of the week. We could still see some downside, and then the weekly candle ends over here, possibly, right? So it's not that because we now have a bullish reaction, that's also a reaction from this demand. I hope you understand this, but basically you always want to wait to see if there's a reaction after the candle close. And for now, it is the beginning of the week, so everything can happen. The candle could close bearish, or it could close all the way up here, right? So looking at the daily then, the daily is of course bullish from this point, or actually, from this point, which is not a clear swing, right? But still, what I mean not with not a clear swing, well, you can see up, down, and then over here you do not break the low with the candle close, so no break. But as you can see, this is not like clear structure. You see what I mean? I hope that's clear. But yeah. So we tap this demand zone, and then from here, what do we expect? Well, to trade up higher in towards that higher time frame open liquidity. So going over to the 4 hour here, well, what I was seeing was this internal liquidity inside this demand. I really wanted this to get taken out, or this was a possibility, but that did not happen. We broke the high here after tapping this demand zone. We broke the high, we created a new demand over here on the 4 hour, which we could expect to push price up higher, of course. So also on NZD USD, I'm expecting to break up higher. Like once we break this high, I'm 100% sure that we're just continuing up higher. So then I'm looking for something like this. So break the high, tap in towards monthly level, and from here just trade up higher. So that's my analysis on NZD USD. Now going over to Euro AUD, on the weekly time frame, we made connection with this weekly demand, but as you know, we have no liquidity in this move up. So in the long term, I see this move get taken out in its whole to take out liquidity under this low. Looking at the daily, well, what do we see? Well, on the daily time frame, we are bullish, and as you can see, we tapped the premium or the discount prices, and you can see a reaction from that point. So this is a beautiful example of how the 50% works. But from here, we could trade up higher in towards the swing high. But like I said, we had no liquidity in the move up, so I expect this liquidity to get taken out in the near future, and then trade up higher. So I also see we still have the monthly level open with this little open supply zone as well. So what I'm going to do is wait for this monthly level to get tapped, and from here I will look at possible shorts trading in towards this liquidity low. Okay, so I'm going to set my alert on top of that supply zone. Going over to the 4 hour, well, what do I see? Well, of course, let's see. We are bullish, but like I said, in the long term, I would want to trade towards this liquidity, so I don't mind if we are bullish or not. We do have switched to bullish order flow, so this is now our demand zone, and now we even broke the high once again. So this is now our demand zone. So from here, I do expect to trade up higher with that order flow. So you could look at longs in the beginning of this week, in line with the trend and the bullish order flow, just trading up higher. So that's definitely a possibility to trade towards this liquidity and at monthly level. So definitely something to look for this week, maybe even from this refined demand zone as well. So that's looking great. Looking at the 1 hour to see if we can already possibly look for a possible entry. So we can see that we took liquidity under this low. So that's definitely great. We took liquidity above this high, and then now we swiped possible early sellers, so we could see a reaction down lower. So I would like to see it internal liquidity grab, and if we then start to break up higher, get a double fractal break or something, then I would want to take the long setup in towards this liquidity high and at higher time frame supply. Going over to GBP AUD, looking at the weekly time frame, it is the same. So we took liquidity above this high, and then I would want to trade in towards this open demand zone with this yearly level open as well. And in this move up, there's no liquidity, so I'm wanting to trade until the low of that move. So looking at the daily, well, it is going to be the same. Then once again, you see a reaction from those discount prices like this. So this is your swing, discount prices, and you get a reaction. But this supply is still in control. We now swept liquidity above this high. From here, I'm still looking at downside in towards these lows, trading towards that yearly level. Looking at the 4 hour, so what I'm looking at is, of course, to in the end trade down lower and take liquidity up under all of these lows and tap that yearly level. So we now swiped all of this liquidity above the highs. We have this supply which is in control, so this could push price down lower. We could now also see another swipe of this high, maybe grab liquidity above this high, but in the future I would like to see, or in the long term, I would like to see lower prices. So at the moment, it's not good to take your short setups, because actually it is okay to take your short setups, because AUD USD was also pushing in towards the upside. If AUD pushes in towards the upside, you could already look for shorts. So I would now wait for to see if this is a reaction from this high or not. So I would like to break the fractal low once again, and then you have enough confirmation to trade down lower. If you now look at the lower time frame and you get fractal breaks, for me that's not enough, because we could see one more swipe of the high, then break down lower, and then the A+ setups are possible. So keep in mind on GBP AUD that you're not going to be entering too early, because there's a lot of room. So be patient, wait for just enough confirmation, order flow switches in order to trade down lower. Looking at Euro NZD, first of all, the weekly time frame, it is exactly the same as Euro AUD, no liquidity in the move, looking to take out the liquidity. Daily time frame, well, what do we see? Well, we see that this supply is still in control, and this could push price down lower. You can also see that we kind of have a support and resistance over here, and as you might know, we trade logic, so we could see a reaction from this point. We also have the monthly level as well, so we could trade down lower in towards this liquidity low and at yearly level in the near future. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, well, what do I see? Okay, we are bullish, but like I said, I would want to trade towards this liquidity, and also we didn't yet grab liquidity under this 4-hour liquidity, so definitely looking at lower prices. We still have this supply open, but this daily supply over here could still hold and could push price down lower. So you then see that from that monthly level, we rejected this high, this daily order flow high, and we created this supply zone. Now from this supply zone, we could also still see reaction because of that monthly level as well. So looking at on the 1 hour, so normally it is looking really clean to trade down lower already from this monthly level, but what do we see? We still have this open supply and trendline liquidity, so we could see something like this, and in this move down we do not really have liquidity, so that's quite tricky as well. So what I would wait on, because we still have quite some room, if you break this low, the fractal low, boom, I would like to take shorts in towards that liquidity. So that's also what I'm waiting for, again, being patient. Looking at GBP NZD, overall, look at the weekly order flow. This is just bullish, bullish, bullish. So I'm expecting upside as well on GBP USD. Looking at the daily time frame, we are also bullish. We already tapped discount prices, and we have bullish order flow on the daily as well, with this demand being in control. So definitely looking at upside here on GBP NZD. Looking at the 4-hour, we are bearish though, and these are the 50% levels. From here you could expect a reaction, and I also see that we have some internal liquidity over here. If we take it out, I could look for possible shorts if the order flow switches, because as you can see, the order flow is also still bullish and in control. So yeah, if we see something like this, boom, 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 order flow switch, then you could look at possible shorts in towards this low. Keep in mind that the higher time frame, the order flow is just so bullish, and we could just trade up higher. So going over to AUD NZD, as you guys know, I took a long setup on this pair and I made a trade breakdown on it, so make sure to watch it. But basically, we see that we kind of have bullish order flow, but we're also just consolidating. But we just tapped this supply zone, grab liquidity up over here. So we could see a possible reaction a little bit down lower. Looking at the daily, well, what do I see? Again, exactly the same, just the supply and the liquidity. So we could see a reaction down lower, maybe in towards the monthly level. Looking on the 4-hour though, so what do I see? For me, we are kind of bearish. Why? Because this was all with the tariffs, so this is just not real price action, or not price action which I can use in my analysis, so I stay out of it. So this is my swing, this is also the supply, and this is the liquidity. So what do we now see? Well, that we have created a new supply zone which is now in control, right? Now the only thing that you need to keep in mind is that we first of all have some more internal liquidity as well, which we can take out in the future, and that from the supply we have the first step. So this is your no possibly, and then you could swipe the no with that internal liquidity, then overflow switch, and then this is a nice setup to take the short one. If you already are going to take the short setup, then that's not A plus, because we could still see a possible swipe. Now if you see another swipe of the low, then you know that it's already valid. So again, it's always being patient here, and you will end up catching a trade, don't worry. Looking at USD Swiss, On the weekly time frame, we tapped this overall demand level or demand zone, and these weeks over here I am just not looking at, because those are big wicks which I don't know what they really are. So that's the reason why I'm just not using them in my analysis. But looking at the weekly time frame over here, we are bearish, but we could still make a possible pullback in towards the 50% levels. We also do have bullish order flow, and this demand is in control and could push price up higher. Looking at the daily time frame, is going to be exactly the same swing, same 50% level, same analysis. Daily order flow is also bullish, and I could expect some more upside in towards this internal liquidity in the near future. Looking at the 4 hour, we're also 4 hour bullish as well, and we have bullish order flow. So if we see a swipe of this low, right, because we have early buyers over here. Why? First of all, this is the first time that we grab liquidity and tap this demand, and we get a break of structure attracting buyers in towards the market. Where our stop loss is headed? Well, over here, if we swipe those, we then break up higher. That's definitely an A+ setup to take short longs in towards that internal high. So that's also what I'm waiting on the USD Swiss. Looking at Euro Swiss, what can we see? Well, on the weekly time frame, we do have some weekly highs open over here. We could see a swipe of them 100% because we took liquidity at these lows. Looking at the daily, we are bearish, and we do have bearish order flow as well. But where this order flow ends? Well, at this supply zone, and we have some internal liquidity as well open. This demand is now also in control as well, because you now broke this high, which means that you now have this demand zone which is in control, right? Looking at the 4 hour, well, what can we see? Okay, yes, we are 4 hour bearish, but we have an open supply with internal liquidity from the tariffs, and we do see order flow which is bullish. So if we see this high break, then longs are 100% valid, and then you could wait for something like this, tap into our yearly level, and then trade up higher. So that's definitely something that I'm looking for, to trade up higher. And what do we also see? We reject again to break the low, and now we could just trade up higher. Looking at GBP Swiss here on the weekly time frame, well, you saw this big manipulation move grabbing all of this liquidity, right? Now you see the move up higher in towards this supply. Now in my opinion, this could even be such a liquidity grab where we then just trade up higher and just trade into the supply, or at least take out liquidity above the highs. So GBP Swiss, I'm definitely looking at upside, and I'm just ignoring the trend, because from this point you could still trade down lower, right? Just looking at this liquidity play, kind of consolidation, manipulation, and I'm looking at the distribution move, which is going to be happening in my opinion. Looking at the daily time frame, we are bearish though, but again, we swept all of these lows. No real liquidity in this move down except over here, but as you can see, we reacted from that liquidity, but we are still shooting up higher, so I do expect the high to get taken out as well. So looking over here, we do also have bullish order flow as well, with this demand now being in control and pushing price back up higher. As you can see, we do miss this demand zone, so I'm definitely waiting for one more swipe to then trade up higher, swiping everybody that's now entering on long positions. Looking at the 4 hour, it is going to be clear as well. So what do we see? Well, we are 4 hour bullish. We didn't yet tap discount prices. We have this open demand zone, so we could see one more swipe before moving up higher. Now the thing is, we swipe liquidity under these lows, so and then we break the highs. So it is possible to already trade up higher, but is it like A+ to take the actual setup? No. So we could trade up higher, but if we are in the trade, it's just not an A+ setup, because we could see that we get swiped before moving up higher, right? So that's the reason why I'm not taking longs until we tap this demand zone. Looking at AUD Swiss, we are bearish, but I do see the same thing as we had over here on GBP Swiss. Just a big manipulation move, swiping liquidity, and now I see liquidity at the highs and not an open but a supply zone that barely has been tapped. So I'm looking to trade in towards there, still looking for higher prices. On the daily, we also have bullish order flow. We have demands that are in control, pushing price up higher, and up higher. So I'm definitely looking to trade up higher here on AUD Swiss towards this liquidity and this open supply, and then maybe in the near future trading towards this overall weekly supply. But for now, this supply looks at a great point to trade towards. As you can see, bullish order flow. This is 100% going to continue up higher in my opinion. Looking at the 4 hour, you can also see that we are just 4 hour over here. You had the break of this, and then you had another break. You're just breaking the highs once again, like again and again and again. So over here we grab liquidity under the lows. So if we see, for example, this fractal high get broken, then you could already look for longs this week. So that's also what I'm looking for. And again, guys, no liquidity in this move down. And then what do you expect? Well, to take that move out in its whole, and we see some liquidity above the highs as well. So definitely clean points to trade towards. Okay. Looking at NZD Swiss, it is obviously going to be the same as AUD Swiss because they kind of move together. So you can see the weekly trend is bearish, but we have liquidity above the highs and is open supply. We are inside the supply zone, but in this move down, there's no liquidity, so we expect to take that move out. Looking at the daily time frame, well, on the daily time frame, it's exactly the same. And this supply, but in this move down, no liquidity, so expect to take out the move in its whole. Then we also see a lot of trendline liquidity, so you expect to take that out in its whole as well, trading towards this open supply. So looking at the 4 hour, we are also 4 hour trend bullish, right over here, and then also over here. We tap discount prices on Thursday, and we also created a new demand zone. So yeah, looking actually pretty good to already take some long setups because we took liquidity underneath over here. So what do we have? If you look at checklist, we are bullish, we tapped in towards discount prices, we took liquidity, we traded in towards demand, we also created a new demand, and the order flow is just clearly bullish. No liquidity in a move down, could trade up higher. So NZD Swiss is actually looking quite good for longs already. So looking at NZD Swiss on the 1 hour, this is your 1 hour demand, which you're looking to trade up higher from. And you now beautifully swept early buyers, which is also Asia. So over here in Asia, you get early buyers because this was the first step in towards demand. Early buyers, you swipe early buyers, you create a great low if we break the fractal high, which is this one. And if you break this, you could then look for long positions on NZD Swiss. So that's also what I'm going to do. If we see something like this, I'm taking long positions. Looking at the next pair, which is CAD Swiss, it's obviously going to be kind of the same because are all Swiss pairs. So looking at the weekly, we still need to tap the 50% levels, and we had this demand in control. Now we have this demand in control, and I'm still expecting upside into that 50% level. Looking here at the daily, we also have an open supply with open liquidity at that 50% level. So that's definitely a point where I'm wanting to trade towards 100% of the times. So as you now are able to see, this demand is in control and could push price back up higher in towards the highs. So looking at the 4 hour, let's see, we are bearish though, but yeah, on the higher time frame, we could see that we could trade towards that open supply and the liquidity above the highs. You can now see that we're kind of having an internal trend in towards the downside, but I'm still expecting upside from this demand zone. So yeah, we see that this is our low. We could see a swipe of the low. Then if we then break up higher, this is a clean setup, guys. So if we swipe the low once again, continuing the trend down lower, and if you then break the high, or even though if you don't swipe the low, but if you break the high over here, then you kind of break the trend and you continue the order flow bullish. So then you could take your long positions up higher in towards the highs. So I'm waiting for confirmation here on CAD Swiss to break some highs, and then I would like to take long positions in towards these liquidity points. USD CAD then, looking at the weekly time frame, yeah, you kind of rejected this level over here, getting a push down up higher. We still have this weekly supply open, definitely looking to trade towards that. You also have a demand open, but like I said, you react from like that liquidity and this personal level. So yeah, looking at the daily, we could already move up higher though. Why? Well, because we have the daily supply and you didn't yet tap that supply. So looking great to trade up higher actually. Of course, you now have this demand in control. You have some liquidity at the lows. So if you swipe this, you could already look for high prices. In my opinion, the only absolutely great long setups are from this demand. But yeah, that this is way too low for this week. So looking at the 4 hour, I'm kind of letting USD CAD go for this week and looking at some other pairs. Why? Well, we either need to wait for a tap in towards this demand before moving up higher, or a swipe of this high, and from here wait for a reaction now lower. So it's definitely going to be later this week. But if we, for example, see a tap in towards this supply, you already hit the 50% levels and we are bearish. So shorts are definitely possible if you also switch the order flow bearish. And then you could trade, for example, in towards these liquidity lows as well. So looking at Euro CAD, yeah, it's looking quite nice to trade up higher. Why? First of all, the weekly time frame, yeah, we are bearish, but look at those highs. We kind of have trend line highs, and as you can see, a lot of bullish momentum. Like from beginning this year, you see a big push, and then you are just continuing to push price up higher. And I will definitely see these liquidity highs possibly get taken out. Looking at the daily time frame, you are also daily trend bullish. You didn't tap the discount prices, but what do you see? Well, that we kind of are inside this wedge, which is being made. You have one tap, the second tap, and you want your third tap over here, which is perfectly aligning with that liquidity over here. You also can see first tap, second tap, and then probably from the third tap you will just break it, and then you can trade towards those discount levels. So that's also what I'm waiting for. I'm also inside long positions. We now also broke the weekly fractal high, so this is absolutely looking beautiful to trade up higher. I'm going to draw just a demand zone over here. Oh, this is the daily time frame. And then we also have this demand, which is in control as well. And yeah, I'm definitely 100% looking at upside on Euro CAD from this daily demand. Looking at the 4 hour here, we are also for our bullish tap discount prices, tap this little refined demand, and then created new demand. And then of course we now have created even more demand. So definitely looking at higher prices here on Euro CAD, looking beautiful. Also grab liquidity under this low, which is absolutely just perfection. So if we now see a retracement in towards, let's say, this refined demand, and also this monthly level, these are A plus longs to trade in towards that high, swing high, as well as this trend which you would want to continue up higher. Looking at GBP CAD, it's also moving up higher quite heavily. Well, I'm also in long positions. Why? Well, first of all, you see you have bullish order flow. This demand is pushing price back up higher, and you can see, well, look at this. swipe all the lows. Where do you want to trade to? Well, first of all, these highs, but then you also have some internal liquidity over here, and you can see the order flow is continuing up higher. So I'm definitely expecting that internal liquidity to go and then get a reaction possibly down lower. Looking at the daily time frame, you're also still daily bullish. We grab liquidity over here, daily demand in control. This daily demand is still open, but as you can see, we're just continuing up higher. So over here, what can you see? Well, we now broke the daily fractal high. So this is now your overall demand in control. And from here, you could push price up higher. You could also push price up higher from here. But I'm just expecting upside on GBP CAD in line with that bullish order flow. So on the 4 hour, what can you see? Well, of course, you are 4 hour bullish as well. Tap discount prices, and then we still have this demand open, but you still have bullish order flow, as you can see, which is getting respected every single time. So this demand is now in control. And yeah, I'm definitely looking to trade in towards this high. And like I said, later on, trading towards, if we can see it, let's see, towards that, yeah, I'm not going to be able to find it, but you know, guys know, towards that internal liquidity on the weekly and daily time frame. So looking at NZD CAD here, I'm also looking at upside. I'm not in this trade, but it's looking quite good. So why? Again, I'm ignoring the trend to see what's happening over here. We grab a lot of liquidity at the lows, like again, consolidation, big manipulation here with tariffs. So consolidation, manipulation, and then move up higher in towards open supply, liquidity above the high, no liquidity in this move down. You expect to take out the whole move. So then looking at, oh no, not looking at AUD CAD, but looking at NZD CAD on the daily time frame then. Well, what do you see? Like, guys, look at this. Beautiful swipe of all the lows. Demand still like tapped. You swipe early buyers over here, and then yeah, where are you going to trade towards? Well, this supply and the liquidity highs. This is so clear. Also now you can see where big institutions are stepping into the market. Over here, why you swiped the early, like you swipe just some buyers, boom, they get into the market. Then over here, you reject this low from the monthly level again, trading up higher. Monthly level again, trading up higher. Guys, this is so clear that it is going to be trading up higher this week in towards those liquidity highs. On the 4 hour, you're also swing bullish. You have bullish order flow. I might just enter here on some long positions. Why? You have that bullish order flow. This demand is now in control. If you break the 4 hour fractal high, that's again confirmation that you will trade up higher in towards the highs. So this is also looking absolutely beautiful to get something like this. Looking at AUD CAD as well, I think I'm in this trade also. So as you guys know, you want to take one trade a day and you want to spread your risk, but I'm trading something different at the moment, testing out a strategy. I'm not switching strategies, it's the same strategy, but it's a different risk management strategy. So I'm testing this out. If it works, I'm already going to share it with you guys. But we gotta test it for a couple of months, build a track record to see if it actually is a good strategy, right? Just so you guys know and don't get confused. But we grab liquidity again, AUD CAD, consolidation, manipulation move, grabbing all of the liquidity. Where are you going to trade towards? Well, at least this high, and maybe in the near future even taking out all of these highs. Looking at the daily here, what do you see? Well, we are daily bearish, but like I said, you would at least want to trade towards this liquidity high and this liquidity high on the weekly. And you can see you just have bullish order flow up higher. So on the 4 hour time frame, it's also going to be exactly what I'm looking for. You have this open supply, you have liquidity above the highs, and then what do you see? Well, again, order flow being in control. So I'm kind of in this trade over here, And what do we see? We swipe liquidity, boom, trade up higher. Swipe liquidity, boom, trade up higher. Little internal liquidity, boom, we trade up higher. So I'm just expecting some higher prices, break the fractal high, then you could try to look for new entries, trading towards that supply. Looking here on the yen basket, I'm of course looking at some downside. Now why? Because the weekly is bullish, we have bullish order flow, we made our retracement, so we could trade up higher towards this open supply, still some liquidity left. Yeah, that's 100% possible. But we have been trading in towards the downside for literally always. So that's my first point. Then we swiped already liquidity, got a reaction or a big reaction. Then we swiped liquidity over here, got a big reaction as well. Looking over here at the daily time frame, after that liquidity swipe, you have bearish order flow with this supply now being in control. And now you also grabbed internal liquidity here on the daily time frame. You see all of this liquidity underneath the lows, and I'm definitely looking to swipe everything with that order flow. So looking at the 4 hour here, on the 4 hour, yeah, we rejected the low, that's true, but the order flow is still in place, right? And we now just took internal liquidity and we didn't grab liquidity underneath this low. So yeah, with no liquidity in this move up, or yeah, you can see that we could at least expect to take out that liquidity. So I'm still looking at downside on the yen basket, just trading down lower and towards that yearly level, and also all of the lows just in general. But if we start breaking, for example, the daily order flow, yeah, then I could expect to trade up higher in towards that weekly supply like we've seen, and then from there get the reaction down lower with the overall long-term trend, which is, as you can see on the weekly, just in towards the downside, right? Down, 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 down. So we either now already move down lower, or we see one more swipe and then move down lower. So looking at euro yen though, looking at the weekly time frame, of course, what can you see? Well, this is a level where we rejected from, and then this is another level. Why is this a level? Well, you can see over here previously we rejected that point, so I'm also looking to trade towards that level because we have an open supply as well, so more liquidity to grab. Looking at the daily, yes, we are bearish. We made our retracement, so we could trade it down lower. But do you have bearish order flow? No, you kind of are not having bearish order flow. You do have bullish order flow though. So you have bullish order flow. Like I said, I would like to trade towards this internal liquidity and this open supply zone, which is also around that level. And then what do you see? Well, this demand is in control with this bullish order flow. You grab internal liquidity. Now you could trade up higher in towards those higher prices. Yes, it is counter trend, but order flow is really strong with the higher time frame narrative, with this open supply being in control. So you could still trade up higher with the order flow, and then from here trade down lower. If you look at the swing, this is still very possible, right? You could still move up higher against the trend and then down lower with the trend, right? You do not have to really already trade down lower. I just want to show you that this is also possible with having this trend. So not looking at GBP Yen, back to Euro Yen here on the 4 hour. Well, what do I see? Well, of course, I can see that we are 4 hour bullish. We tapped this demand zone, grabbed liquidity, and then we now this morning actually broke the 4 hour fractal and we created new demand. And then also, what do you see? Yeah, we grabbed this liquidity over here. So this is actually beautiful, guys. So again, what happened? We had a demand zone. Okay, people wanted to go long. What do we see? Fractal break to the downside. So we had early sellers. We swipe early sellers. And then we got the fractal break towards the upside. People thinking, okay, we can now actually trade up higher because we already swiped early buyers. Then we get another swipe, swiping everybody under this low and this liquidity, and now you break the upside. And now if you see a retracement, for example, towards that yearly level, these are A plus longs to trade in towards this swing high. Okay, so I'm still expecting upside over here on the yen, waiting for some lower time frame confirmation from this demand zone. Looking over here at GBP Yen, looking at the weekly time frame first. So what do I see? Yeah, we are bearish. We also tapped supply, so I'm not expecting higher prices, although I do see we kind of have a trend and we broke this trend in towards the upside. So this is what we have. So this is your kind of like trend in towards the downside, and you now broke the trend because you broke this high. So now you actually have this demand in control, and you could now see a possible swipe of all the liquidity highs to then trade down lower. So that's definitely a possibility though. So looking at the daily, what can we see? Well, we are raging a bit. We have this 25 and 75 level, or 25 and 75, and as you can see, we are rejecting those points. So also from here you could trade down lower, definitely possible. But for now, what can you see? Well, that we kind of have, first of all, this open demand, but we also have this demand which is in control, and as you can see, we got a reaction from it as well. So I also do see that we have this open imbalance candle over here at the yearly level, which you could definitely swipe before moving down lower. Why? Well, we grab liquidity, so you expect downside, but this could be early sellers. You then continue the order flow, swiping early sellers, then you get the real move in towards the downside. So that's definitely also a possibility. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, okay, you're also 4-hour bullish. You have that open supply, you have the yearly level, but you also have like bullish order flow. So yeah, I could expect some upside here on GBP Yen, although I do not like that we still have this liquidity open, because if you have your checklist, where are you going to be checking off liquidity? You could say this liquidity, but in my opinion, that's not enough. I would like to see one more swipe, swiping everybody under this low as well, and then you could wait for that overflow switch. Now, of course, that's what I'm waiting on. I'm not saying that it's not possible to already trade up higher, because that's definitely possible, because you're inside this demand and you already switched bullish, so you could just continue up higher in towards that yearly level. From that yearly level though, I would wait for an overflow switch and then I would look for shorts. Looking at USD Yen here, so USD Yen weekly is bullish order flow, grabbing liquidity up higher. Now we have this supply which pushed price down lower, but overall I'm looking at possible higher prices though. Looking at the daily time frame, we still didn't tap the premium prices. We still have this supply open. Yeah, we grab liquidity above this high, but again, with supply being open, this could be early sellers swiping liquidity over here. We now could see higher prices in towards those 50% levels. So looking at the 4-hour, I didn't take this trade because I was waiting for this internal liquidity to get grabbed and this demand to be tapped before actually moving up higher. So what I'm looking for is a swipe, then your order flow switch, and then definitely like longs or again on USD Yen, looking beautiful to trade up higher in towards that open supply and 50% levels. You guys know I took 3R over here and then another 2R over here, so that's 5R. And then over here I'm looking for more liquidity, then tap in towards demand. Again guys, be patient, wait for your confirmation, and then you just trade in towards those highs. And definitely longs are still the play. Looking on the weekly time frame here, what do you see on AUD Yen? Swiping all of the lows, boom, like guys, swiping all of the lows, no liquidity in this move down. Where do you trade towards? Well, liquidity at the highs, and open supply. Definitely looking at longs here on the daily time frame. Also beautiful, like beautiful bullish order flow here. Still need to trade towards this liquidity. Grabbed internal liquidity over here, looking for higher prices. Looking here on the 4-hour though, we are bearish, but like I said, higher time frame above just a simple structure. Because why do we use structure? To see where price is going to head towards. Well, if we see on the higher time frame that price is going to head towards that, and the 4-hour says we're bearish, well, I'm just listening to the higher time frame because that's more confirmation, that's higher probability. So over here we have bullish order flow as well, and we now also grabbed liquidity underneath this low over here, and then we broke the fractal. So then I decided to go long, and as you can see, we rejected the low over here. So I'm just expecting some upside in towards the highs. So yeah, definitely looking for higher prices, because again, where do you expect some people to step into the market, some institutional players? Well, first of all, if you swipe early buyers and grab liquidity underneath this major low. So here is a point where they step into the market. Then possibly also over here. Why? Because you swipe some liquidity. Then possibly over here because you swipe some liquidity. Over here because you swipe some liquidity. And then over here, this one is the most clear because you swipe some liquidity. They step over here into a more market. So move up higher with that order flow, definitely possible. Looking at NZD Yen here, looking on the weekly time frame, again, you see a swipe of all the lows, and you see an open supply and liquidity above the highs, looking to take that out. Now it already took some liquidity, so yeah, that's why you see that big candle previous week, but now I could expect some more upside though. Yeah, we do have some liquidity left with an open demand, but for now I'm still expecting a move up higher before trading towards that demand. Looking at the daily here, well, what do I see? Well, the daily fractal is now actually bearish. We took some daily liquidity though. So there are two things that now have happened or could happen, right? So we grabbed liquidity above the highs. Now we switch order flow. So we broke the fractal as well as this low. So now this is your order flow. This supply could push price down lower, right? So that's option one. Or you grab liquidity. People think, okay, we grab liquidity. We now have an order flow switch. We now have supply. We could trade down lower. But this could be a trap of the market to then just trade up higher, take out liquidity of all these highs, and creating liquidity above these highs for the market makers to step in the market over here and then take their profits above this high. So that's definitely also possible. So keep that in mind, because AUD Yen and NZD Yen are kind of correlated. If you see AUD Yen clearly pushing up higher and NZD Yen also having liquidity above those highs, then you could expect to trade up higher. Looking over here at the 4-hour time frame, we are also 4-hour bullish. Yeah, we have the 50% open, but we now clearly tap this refined demand, grabbing liquidity underneath these lows, then getting a fractal change. Now you are inside this 4-hour demand, fractal bullish. So longs could be possible. If you see another swipe, longs all 100% possible. Now keep in mind that the order flow is bearish though, but this could be a clean swipe of the lows to then trade up higher. So I'm just looking at longs. Just keep in mind that the order flow is bearish though on the daily time frame. But again, where do you see markets getting into the market or market makers? Over here, because you swipe liquidity, then over here because you swipe liquidity, then over here because you swipe clearly like some buyers, and then you just see the real move towards the upside, swiping all of the liquidity. Looking at Swiss yen here on the weekly time frame, well, you can see you are in weekly demand. Like I've been calling it from this point, but we are just going to be trading towards the supply, swiping all of the liquidity, boom, trading up higher. Looking at the daily time frame, well, what do you see? You're also daily bullish order flow, daily demand in control, pushing price up higher. You are rejecting every single low. As you can see, we're also looking to reject this low as well, so you could just trade up higher. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we're also 4-hour bullish over here. So this was your trend. You tapped in towards the discount prices, and from here you expect to trade towards the trend high. So let's see. We do have some equal highs over here as well. Definitely something to trade towards. And then this amount is in control. Now, what do I want to see? Well, of course, your order flow switch, or not your order flow switch, but a fractal break for confirmation, and then to trade up higher. So this is like, again, beautiful. Why you're rejecting the lows? Why aren't you going to reject the low over here? And then you can just trade up higher. So on Swiss Yen, that's also what I'm waiting for. Then we have CAD Yen as well. So let's see, looking at the weekly time frame, what do we see? Again, big move, swiping everyone over here. Now you, after swiping, you created this break, causing a demand zone to be created. Bullish order flow, could trade up higher, take out all of the liquidity. What I do not like is this monthly demand over here, which we didn't yet have tapped. So we could still see one more swipe before swiping everybody above these highs. So that's definitely what I'm expecting though. So yeah, that's also what I'm waiting on, to tap this monthly demand. So for now, the order flow over here on the daily time frame is still bullish, with this demand being in control. But you swipe liquidity above the highs, sellers could step into the market, swiping everybody that went long, and then you see the real move in towards the upside. So that's definitely possible. Now, of course, you could still also continue up higher because you swiped this liquidity already. So with that order flow as well, you could now see a reaction from that monthly level, trading up higher. Looking over here on the 4-hour time frame, you're also 4-hour swing bullish. And you grab liquidity underneath this low. So if you now see some fractal breaks in towards the upside, definitely could trade up higher because you still have an open supply and some more internal liquidity to trade towards. So definitely a possibility, and a reaction from that monthly level is also definitely possible. So if you see those breaks happen, CAD Yen longs are still possible, but keep in mind though that you miss connection with a monthly demand. You're looking at Euro GBP, which is going to be my last pair, or not my last pair. I'm going to do one more. So Euro GBP, you can see kind of consolidating, but you're breaking the lows again and again and again. So here I also expect to break the lows. You have some bearish order flow, again swiping liquidity, boom, down lower, swiping liquidity, boom, down lower. I'm just expecting now to trade in towards this demand zone. That's definitely what I'm waiting on. In this move up, no liquidity, so we expect to take out the move. If you're here, you're also expecting to trade down lower in towards the lows. Looking over here at the daily time frame, I know my chart is a bit messy here on Euro GBP, but we are bullish. We have bullish order flow. This demand is in control, could push price up higher, but we also have bearish order flow, and in line with the higher time frame that we do not have any liquidity in this move up. I do expect to tap this supply and then from here take shorts towards the downside. So looking here on the 4-hour time frame, yes, we are bullish. We tap or grab liquidity, and then we have this demand zone. From this demand, you could look at longs, but definitely from this supply and this internal liquidity, I am taking shorts 100% of the time towards the lows. So then looking at USD SEK. So because of the news this morning, which I cannot really explain in depth here, but this caused the dollar to dump, and basically we do have liquidity above the highs, but with the dollar being bearish, we could just swipe all of the lows here, and we also still have daily order flow, which is bearish. Why? Well, clearly this supply is in control. And you also now see that you grab liquidity over here, tap 50% levels, and you now respect this high, so you could trade down lower. So I'm in this trade, so I might just take my profits and leave, because I do see a weaker dollar. But yeah, maybe if we swipe this low, then I could possibly take my profits. Otherwise, we could now still see a liquidity grab before moving up higher. So yeah, I'm definitely waiting though, because I normally wait for my stop loss or take profit to get hit. But with the fundamentals now that I trade that, yeah, I could already cut losses or take some profits if I see that the market is switching into another direction. So this were all the forex pairs that are just great to trade. I hope you guys liked my weekly outlook and got a lot of value out of it, and see you guys in the next one. Ciao.